and welcome to the 72nd episode of Recluse Horror. This is a daily horror movie review podcast. So just a little background on the project. Back 339 days ago, on my birthday, I decided I wanted to watch and review a horror movie every single day. As I said, I've done it for the past 339 days, although only the last 72 have been podcasts. Before that, it was text reviews. So you'll probably hear some of this in the background, as I assume happens a lot, but my roommates are back in town, so that's good. Big, busy, full house, not me by myself being just absolutely annoyed or terrified or whatever, any of the things that happen to me when I'm basically by myself. So just sort of along those lines, thinking, in that mindset of being alone or finally not being here alone. I watched a movie called A Night Alone today from 2018. It's a short film. It's about I think it was a little over 4 minutes. I was assuming that was sort of what it was going to be about, somebody being alone and terrible things happening because it's a horror movie. That is not the movie that I got. In fact, as far as synopses go, I don't really know what this one is. So I guess you can say that there's a person, and this person, he is a man. He's by himself, and things happen kind of sometimes, a little bit, that are horror-y. I've had a kind of a streak of not so great ones, honestly. I think the last good one that I watched was Peephole. And then I had a run of not so bad ones before that. So I don't know, I guess it's balancing out overall. But this one was really just not good. The lighting, I will say, was pretty good. The sets were somewhat interesting, but parts of them were sort of confusing. The camera work was very much not good. The camera itself seemed like it was a pretty good camera. The resolution was good. It wasn't fuzzy or anything like that. And again, like I said, the lighting was good. But the very first shot is a very well framed shot. So that's worth mentioning. And it's just like sort of a fixed position, dead on this person, while he's performing some activity. Again, there's so little that happens in this. It's very hard to synopsize, and hard to decide what's a spoiler and what isn't. But that's a very good position. But this person, eventually he gets up from what he's doing after what seems like forever, actually. And, none of that has anything to do with the horror movie, the thing that he's doing. So, I don't know. It kind of does. Okay, it kind of does. What you see is somewhat important, I guess, to the story, but it feels like it takes forever to come. Regardless, when he gets up from this table, they try to do this thing, and it's sort of an ambitious shot, but it was like the worst executed shot I've ever seen. So basically, they try to turn the camera with him as he goes, like, sort of around something and then into a different room. So they were trying to pan as he moved, and follow him. And it is just literally like a shuddering, like, it'll go like 2 feet, 1 feet, and then it just keeps stopping and shuddering and like moving very jerkily over to this thing. And it literally seems like it's probably the camera has been set down on a counter and they tried to move it smoothly and it just wasn't going. And for some reason they kept this shot. This is probably the single worst thing in the movie, that like the thing that you can point out that is like, there's no justification for it. There's no way that this was what they were going for. And there's also no reason why they couldn't have reshot it. I assume they were probably on a time crunch. The space that they were filming in probably didn't belong to them. It was something that they were borrowing. But that was so particularly bad. I would have gone to any lengths to redo that shot. Honestly, it would have cost them another, probably, I don't know how long it took to set up that shot initially, but it probably would have taken them some time. let's say it added another 20 minutes or something to their filming time. I guess they didn't have any spare 20 minutes lying around, because that it was really bad. Honestly, I feel like at that point, I don't know what commitment this person had to the people who were working on this film with them. I don't know, but if I were the director, I would have just taken my name off of it if they tried to put that shot in something. So, the camera work from that point is no better. Some of it is shaky. Some of it is just really angled really weirdly. The only well-framed shot was that very first initial shot. It's at a very good angle. It shows you exactly what you need to see, and nothing ever throughout the rest of the movie is any good. There's there's landmarks that you're seeing that are close to the edge of a camera that show just how shuttery it is. They don't so when you're filming something, when you're trying to frame a shot, if you want to have something, you don't want to have anything near the edge of the frame that'll show the shakiness. If you have, say, if you're on a white wall and there's a picture frame on that wall, you want to make sure that you are a little bit, at least a few feet above that you're framing in. As much as you possibly can, because otherwise anytime your camera dips or moves, you can see, based on the relationship between where that frame is, the top of the picture frame and that shot, you're going to be able to see the shakiness of a shot. I'm sure this is probably not something that's like an epiphany to anybody listening to this show, but it's just like a technique you do have to sort of, I don't know, maybe it's just coming from my particular background. That's just the sort of thing that you don't do, unless you're very confident in your ability to keep the shot very stable. If you're using a Steadicam, then you can do things like that. But otherwise, all it does is make a tiny bit of shakiness look incredibly incredibly bad. And that's what you get in certain parts of this. In other places, it's just the shots are not framed well, or the pan is not smooth when they're trying to pan to a different area. The camera work just all around. I understand these are not professionals that are working on this, but it was pretty bad on pretty much every level. So the acting was fine. The actor did basically nothing. They were just going through some pretty daily routine stuff, and at no point in the film do they like really give him any chance to try to like act at all. There's no moment of this where they really react the way that a person in a horror movie does. They completely cut out that third act of the story entirely, which is another problem of the film, that nothing happens really, and the tiny, tiny bit of horror elements that are in it are not very good. But it also only has 2 acts. It has the acts where you start to see what's going wrong, or start to establish that, and then you show a little bit of it starting to go wrong, and then that's the end of it. That's the whole end of the movie. The horror elements probably take up a total of 15 seconds of the screen time in this, at least the true full-on horror moments. What the horror that is there is not in any way intimidating or frightening or anything, even for people who, I don't think it would even be frightening for people who, are sort of sensitive to horror stuff. If you're somebody who freaks out watching horror movies but still loves them, I really don't think you'd be freaked out by this at all. There's nothing to be scared of. Part of that is because the actor himself is sort of a lot of the things that are happening, in so much as there are any number of things happening, doesn't see it. It's all for the audience. It's one of those ones that what it's trying to do is it's trying to make the audience do that thing where they're like, no, watch out, blah, 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 and screaming at the TV, for the guy who doesn't understand that there's a killer behind him or something like that. They're trying to do that, and it is completely ineffective because the actor has no reaction to anything, because he's not seeing anything for the majority of the movie. You have no connection to what's happening because it's A, not frightening, and B, he doesn't react, so you don't react. There's no sympathetic emotion that you can bring up just because you see that this person is terrified. Like, even if something isn't scary, if a person really reacts to it in a way that is very strong, sometimes it can put you in that frame of mind where you're like, oh gosh, oh no, and I don't think that happens a lot, but it can happen, and it definitely helps. You get none of that in this. The movie is paced very, very strangely. Again, always weird to talk about pacing in a 4-minute short film, but like the first minute and a half, it takes a second before you realize that anything is really going on, and then you're like, really, this is all that's happening? Like, it's just not really much of a big deal when it does happen. And like the things that are actually happening are kind of, they're laughable. There was a point, the very, very end of the movie, where I was watching this with one of my roommates, actually. It was really, there was one point where we were both like laugh out loud laughing at the sort of reveal here. Now, this particular problem, the reason why it was laughable is really because they didn't add an establishing shot. It's hard to talk about because it is a spoiler, but it really needed an establishing shot because the alternative made it seem like something happened that was just totally ridiculous and funny. And I can't go into specifics or it's a complete spoiler. But if they had been able to put in this establishing shot, something showing basically you needed a before picture and all they gave you was an after picture, and the after picture implies something that is really funny, even though you're pretty sure that that's not what was happening. I don't know. It's really hard this is all really hard to describe without spoilers, but I'm just going to abandon this. Just suffice it to say that something about the way that the end was edited and cut together and shot made it seem ridiculous and funny, but it's clearly, it's not supposed to be funny. What's happening is not supposed to be funny. The effects are okay. There is one particular effect. It's a practical effect that looks just awful. You'll know it when you see it. If you watch this, I don't know why you would, but there is one particular practical effect that's really bad. The other effects are fine. It's just that there isn't anything happening, and they're pretty stereotypical effects. They're well done for what they are, though. Sorry if I'm a little motor mouthy today. I had a pretty fun day at work, and yeah, I don't know. It's just making me sort of giddy, which is good because I haven't felt that way in a while, and I really like my job, and today was a fun day for stupid reasons. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what else I can say about this movie. It's really not good. The lighting is probably the best part, and it's really nothing particularly special. It's just, as far as short films go, a lot of times they can be washed out, or they can have apparently a big thing with certain directors is over color correcting the shit out of it. You didn't really get in any of this. There was one moment in one of the later parts of this movie that felt a little bit washed out. I don't necessarily know if it actually was, but the first initial shots, the lighting was very good. And that framing of the first shot, really good. There's very little else I can say about this one. The actor didn't have a chance to act, but what he was doing was fine. And what he was doing, I'm sure, is exactly what he was told to do. This movie, I probably wouldn't go out of my way to see anything else by this director or this team necessarily, but it's fine. If I came across another one like I accidentally did with that guy from yesterday, that Azran Shai, I think his name was, then I wouldn't immediately turn it off or anything. I would be interested enough to sit through it and see how it was. This just was surprisingly I mean, the title, again, A Night Alone, it does have certain implications of somebody being alone. And while this person is alone, they give you no context as to, like, is there somebody else who generally lives in this place? It kind of looks like a bachelor pad to a certain degree. So there's no reason to think that, like, this is an unusual experience for him. So the title just feels a little ill-fitting. And again, there's no third act. Nothing ever really happens. And it's the way that the movie ends. Sometimes having that in a short film can be, it can be exciting. It can be thrilling when it just like, the movie cuts before shit really hits the fan. But it doesn't even get close. It's like it cuts way before anything that would have happened that might have been interesting. So, I guess that's pretty much my review of A Night Alone from 2018. And that's my show today. Again, sorry if I was a little motor mouthy. Hopefully it wasn't as rambly as yesterday. So those are your two alternatives. Either I ramble on or I just motor mouth everything because I'm a stupid girl. Anyway, if you enjoyed this show, please rate, review, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever site that you found us. If you would like to share it with someone and they do not have the same platform as you, we are available on YouTube, Player FM, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and pretty much any podcatcher out there. That also goes if you just don't like the platform that you found us on, feel free to switch, obviously. If you would like to reach out to us on social media, you can do so on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and you can email me at reclusehorror@gmail.com. Yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this episode. Just spent a really long time trying to think of something else to say, but I don't really have anything. Nothing pertinent to horror movies. Just heard about Stephen Hawking. Real sad about that. Unfortunately, I'm in one of those weird spots where, all of the good things that happened today are making it hard to feel appropriately responding to that. So, Stephen Hawking, you were an amazing man.